I know David's already welcomed you all this morning, but just want to say it's a huge pleasure to have you all here. So, as David said, I work at the Lancaster London. I am our senior HR advisor and in-house mediator. Almost got one of the longest titles in the company, not quite. But I want to talk to you today about mediation within our company, how we set it up and how we came about. Just to set the scene, we are a privately owned company. For those of you that don't know, we have 3 hotels in London and almost two, one's nearly built in Bangkok in Thailand. So because we're not owned by a big corporate group, a big chain, it means that we can make changes very easily and very effectively within our company, which meant that mediation was a very natural progression for us. We have around 390 to 460 employees. And again, because we can make changes quite quickly, we have procedures that most of our employees can come on board with relatively easily. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to look at our own company culture within the Lancaster and why that was so important for mediation to work, to get people on board. The power balance between a manager and employee, so sometimes when you have the struggles between the two and how that could lead to challenges within the mediation itself. Facts and figures, so where we've been and where we are now, and when might mediation be most appropriate. Why it was right for us, how we changed our policies and our grievance procedure, and where we are currently at now. If anyone does have any questions, then please just ask as we go along, but there will be time as well at the end, okay? So, as I said, our company culture was vital to make sure mediation really worked here. We have values, and these are some of our values that we live and breathe by within our company. They all fall under We Always Care. So We Always Care is our main company value, and we expect our employees to really, truly believe in it when they're here at work. For mediation to go well, obviously that meant that we'd have to think how mediation would fit in with our company culture. It was quite an obvious progression for us because, as I said, we're all about giving the employees the time to speak, the floor, so when they're facing their struggles, when they're facing issues, they really do feel that they can come to us. We didn't want to be a HR department where employees are scared of us. There was that atmosphere and that feeling that they would only come to HR when they were in trouble. So, as soon as, HR's calling, we've done something wrong. So I'm sure some of you might feel that as well within your company culture. So to have mediation really felt that, employees can come to us in times of need. If they're struggling with something, if they're facing an issue, if they just want to talk about it and not have that feeling that if I raise a problem or if I raise an issue with someone, it's going to go through investigations, it might lead to a disciplinary, and then there's going to be a lot of difficulties going back into the workplace. That was one of our biggest struggles where we felt I'm not going to tell anything to HR because it means that then when I have to face that person again in work, how am I going to talk to them? How am I going to act normally? There's still going to be a divide amongst us. So we really felt that mediation was the way that we could go. When I started thinking about it, it was around maybe halfway through 2014. Late summer, I went on the eye-opener course at TCM, and straight away, we were talking about how to make employees feel valued, how to make them feel that they were listened to. And instantly I thought, well, this is perfect for our culture. This is exactly what we're about. So we then started slowly talking about it. We got our strategy team on board, managing director, general manager, hotel manager, and that's where the initial buy-in came from. That was so important to get the top leaders on board within our company because then it trickled down into the rest of the employees. If you don't have your top people on board, then the employees aren't really going to believe in it either. So that was so vital for us. After 2014, we started implementing the scheme through our policies, which I'm going to talk a little bit about later. So we changed our investigation, disciplinary policies, so mediation was in that as well. We changed our grievance policy to the resolutions policy, which I know David has touched on already, and we'll speak about it a bit later. But it was so important that mediation was the first step. So as soon as someone came to us with a problem, we said, well, have you spoken to your manager about it? And most of the time it would be, no. So, okay, well, why haven't you spoken about it? So, do you think that would help you? Yes, probably. Okay, so let's start that straight away. And that was fed back to the management team. So they instantly knew that that was the first step they had to do as well. So if anything came to us with your traditional grievance, we'd say, okay, well, I'm going to take this back to your manager, and I suggest that you sit down with the manager and the employee and you try to talk about it together. Obviously, if there's still no outcome from that, if you feel that you need something more, then come back to myself and we'll do a mediation with me, yourself and the other party. So instantly, mediation came at the forefront of each of our policies. These are the disciplinary figures that we had before mediation, leading through it, and where we're at now. So in 2013, we had 49 disciplinaries. So these started from investigation and went all the way through to a disciplinary with an outcome. Now that outcome could have been a letter of concern on their file. It could have been a verbal warning, could have been a first warning, or it could have been a dismissal. But it went all the way through that process. So all of these employees were then left to go back to work and have to face that aggrieved party again. So there was no end for them. It just continued to go. 2014, we dipped down to around 38. And again, we implemented mediation halfway through towards the end of 2014. In 2015, we've dropped right down to just 15 disciplinaries. And again, so this is a huge difference from 2013 to 2015, and that's a change in our culture as a hotel. It's a change in our leadership style and the managers believing in it, the reputation that we have as HR, because now people feel they can come to us straight away. They don't have to let that problem escalate and get worse and worse and worse until they blow up, have some sort of argument, they can't talk to each other anymore. So we nip it in the bud straight away. This is mediation versus disciplinary. So I know some of you are thinking, well, we have to sometimes go to disciplinary, we can't avoid it. And yes, that's true. Sometimes the subject matter, it needs to be investigated properly. There needs to be some sort of formal outcome. But giving employees the option as well to have mediation really helps to put all their problems out on the table where they can speak about it. When I looked back at the figures for 2013, had we have had mediation then and our culture be how it is now, 18 of those cases would have been suitable for mediation. So that's 18 cases, probably some of them involve 2, 3, 4 employees, some of them just 2. But each of those employees then could have had mediation and gone back to the workplace feeling maybe more engaged, more positive, maybe that it would positively impact their department as well. 31 of them still would have gone to disciplinary, but that's because obviously they had to go through because of the subject matter. In 2014, when we started the shift towards mediation and our culture change within HR, 21 of those cases would have been suitable for mediation again had we have had that. So 17 of those would have gone to disciplinary. In 2015, again with the culture changing, mediation is now live, it's in our policies. 22 cases did go through to mediation. So I mediated roughly 22, there's probably a few more because I didn't include just the informal meetings within HR where I said, okay, just come to the office, let's sit down and talk about things, using those soft skills that I now have as a mediator. And we've had to have 15 proceed to disciplinary because, again, we needed to go through those procedures. But what we really found was that before we had mediation, our hands were really tied with the employment law. So obviously, we have policies, we have structures, we have employment law that we need to follow and we need to stick to. But what it meant was that for us as an employee in a HR team, we were quite cold. So our policies were quite cold, our procedures, our outcome letters, our invite letters. We still have a structure that we have to stick to, but there's a bit more warmth behind it. There's the human element, which mediation has taught us and has allowed us to have. So again, we might go through to disciplinaries, but if it's appropriate after that, we'll say, well, what I'm going to advise now as an outcome is that we have a mediation together with other people that were involved in this. Because again, you've had a disciplinary, you've had an outcome, but now I expect you to go back to work and get on with things. Well, that's not going to happen, because people are still going to have that chip on the shoulder. They're still not going to be happy. They're not going to feel like they've been listened to. And one of the first cases that we did in 2014 has always really stuck out in my mind, was that when we finished the mediation, at the beginning the manager was very much, this has to go to disciplinary, like we can't carry on like this. And I was like, well, let's just try mediation. Let's just see how it goes. It might be perfect for this employee. It might be what they need. Disciplinaries in the past haven't worked, so let's try a different approach now. And when we did it, it was very, very difficult. It was one of the first proper ones that we'd done as a company. But then at the end, the employee who had the ongoing issues turned around and said, this would have been amazing if I'd have had this years ago. It's exactly what I've been waiting for about the last 3-4 years. I've needed a time just to talk about things and to get things off my chest. This is perfect for me. And, it really did work. It really did help him. He really felt that he was listened to. He was a proper employee, not just another number, not just someone that constantly just comes to work and goes through the motions. He actually then felt that, wow, my company just sat down and let me have 2 hours just to talk about how I've been feeling with this other person. So that really did make a difference for us. So, we really wanted to continue with that. Some of the main topics that we use for mediation within our hotel, 45 of them are usually because of a breakdown in communication. So something's gone wrong between the two parties. They're not listening to each other. They're going round and round in circles. 32 are verbal arguments. Obviously, these haven't got to the stage where we need to go through to a disciplinary. So it's in the early stages, but again, we've nipped it in the bud before it turns out to a full-blown argument or potentially a fight. 14% are minor misconducts. So again, maybe small breaches of a procedure or an SOP, maybe lateness, but instead of investigating disciplinary, we're saying, well, what's behind this? Why are you late? Is there an issue with the department? Are you not happy? Do you not want to be in work? We're sitting down with the parties together and we're talking about it instead of going straight through to disciplinary again. And just 9% are disrespectful behaviour. We're quite lucky that we don't have very much of that within our company. But obviously the times when we've managed to, again, stop things before they escalate is when we've used mediation, and it has really helped because people have had that chance to vent, to get things off their chest and talk about things before they get worse. So again, these are some of the main topics that mediation is appropriate for. It doesn't mean that we forget about everything else. It just means that some things, obviously, as you know, aren't appropriate for mediation. We don't forget about our disciplinary procedures, our investigations. That's still very much on one side, but where we can, we will use mediation to really get to the bottom of a problem. What I think is extremely important is that you remember, if you have mediation at the moment, if you have a very good scheme, or if you're at the very beginning of thinking this could work for us, is you take into consideration the hierarchy of your departments. You can't have a top-down approach of management style over here, so it's very much managers say this is what we have to do, everyone else listens, and over here you want to use mediation because it won't work. You have to have a management approach and a leadership approach that encourages talking, it encourages sharing feelings, caring about the employee's struggles, because then that's where mediation comes into play and you combine them together. That would probably be my biggest tip for everybody. So where are we now? After implementing mediation in 2014, as I said, we tried to use it as much as possible. We changed all of our policies. We implemented our resolution policy instead of the grievance policy. And this really led then to the company feeling a lot more engaged and our employees feeling a lot more valued. I won the Rising Star Mediation at the National PMA Mediation Awards in 2015 for schemes under 12 months. And again, that really shows how we implemented it into our company. We got the strategy team involved. We got mediation as part of their goals, so everyone was aware of it, everyone bought into it. We're now on the Times Top 100 Companies to Work For. A round of applause if you'd like. So that's just happened. We find out next week where we are in that list. But again, we truly feel that one of the reasons that we made it onto here is because our employees are a lot more engaged and they feel that they are now listened to. We're on a journey to become a 5-star hotel. Some of you might know, but we're going through a massive refurbishment at the moment to change our lobby, our bedrooms, the overall feel of the hotel. And with that becomes 5-star behaviours and training. So mediation is vital for that. It's vital that our employees are listened to. If they have a problem, if they have an issue, they can share it, they can talk about it. And it's just one of the ways that we're engaging with our employees. As I said before, mediation is integrated into our strategy team goals. So that's so vital if you're thinking about starting this now. Put it right up at the top of all of your goals, HR managers, managing directors, everything. It needs to be in your company's goals to get everyone on board and listen, and so that they take it on board as well. So before, our policies reflect our company culture. And because of this, we don't alienate our employees. We really embrace their struggles. We listen to them. They have the floor when they need to talk. They know now that they can come to HR. It's not a scary place. They're not going to be in trouble. They can come and sit in our office. They can sit in the meeting room and they can talk to us. And again, you know, it really comes down to we're a human employee. We really care. So we want to help people. We want to listen to them. And I think mediation just really helps that. That's it. Any questions? Thank you very much. So any questions at the moment? There will be time again at the end. We'll have an open forum. But is there anything that's really stuck out? Yes.
Right, thank you. My name is Pierre Marsh. Great, and it's lovely to hear what you've been doing. I'm not surprised that people are starting to speak to one another if they've got a mechanism to do that through mediation. But here's a hard question for you.
Thanks.
Because that's what we do, don't we, as mediators. We don't do this stuff. So you're talking about mediation. How do you ensure equality in mediation if the head of human resources is doing the mediating?
So it's not actually the head of HR within our department, so that would be a HR manager. It is myself, so even though I am a senior HR advisor, you know, I have to really put myself back from those employees. So I have been in situations where it's been very difficult. I might know one employee more than the other. I might, you know, understand things from a management side as well. But for me, it's so vital that you forget about your HR role when you step into the mediator role. That might not be easy for everybody. Some people might find that a struggle. But for me personally, I have to think, okay, I'm a mediator and I'm a HR advisor. So over here is all my employee relations, but over here is my mediator role. And now I'm not on the side of a manager, I'm not on the side of an employee. I'm thinking what's best for them as a whole and what's best for them as a department and a company. But again, as a mediator, I'm not the one that makes the decisions. I don't force them to an agreement. I don't force them into the meeting. They have to go into that together and they have to want to be there. Again, this is personal to me. I started in front of house on reception. So I started from that side of the company as an employer. So it was a little bit easier for me maybe to think, well, what do I need as an employer, as an employee, not as a HR person. And that's maybe helped me step into that role a little bit easier. Does that help?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, the lady at the back.
Sorry, my name's Angie Gasper. I think it is important to have a look at conflicts of interest, and that's why companies or organisations often choose to train several mediators or a group of mediators, because it might be that you're an HR professional, but then something goes to disciplinary or even employment tribunal, so you have to be very aware of the conflicts of interest.
Yeah, exactly.
And how you operate with the mediation.
Yeah, you really have to. You have to think about, where is this going? How is the employee feeling? But also, from the management side. But maybe because I have the HR background as well, I have that understanding of why it might work for them, why it's important. Yes.
Hi. How do you class success for mediation? Is it that at the end of the mediation you've come and got an action plan that's been agreed, or is it after, say, the 6-month follow-up that you do and that both parties are
still talking? It's worked. I think it's a combination of both, to be honest. I think it's very, you would class your success, I suppose, if the parties reach an agreement within the meeting, but again, they have to come to that by themselves. So that, in a way, if they've got to that point, that's a success because they've managed to make it that far. So you can start off your mediation with both employees looking opposite ways, not talking to each other, arms folded, and halfway through the meeting or towards the end of the meeting, they'll slowly start turning around. Their body language becomes a lot more relaxed. They're maybe laughing, smiling. That in itself is a small success. So you can see that has really changed through the course of them just speaking to each other. And again, the agreement at the end that they come up with the action points that they're going to progress with, they talk about how they want to move forward, and that shows the success as well, that they've got to that stage where they can think about the future. And then it comes with the follow-up meetings. So we do 4-week follow-up meetings, 6 weeks if needed, and then at 12 weeks. And that again shows where they're at now. And if something has slipped, then we'll go back again and we'll sit together and say, okay, what went wrong? This is your agreement. This is what you agreed. So what's happened now? So they're not left by themselves at the end. Does that help? Okay. Anyone else? Yes?
All right. Thank you. Norman Trafford, MOD. The majority of grievances that come my way are in the line between the manager and a person working for him. And mediation doesn't always seem to be applicable because the junior person will feel that they're going to be victimised the following week, and the senior person will feel that their authority has been challenged inappropriately. Have you got a golden rule?
There isn't. It does happen. I mean, that will happen. I mean, we've had it here as well, that we've gone in and a manager will be very much, I'm your manager, you have to listen to me, this is what I'm telling you to do. And the employee will be very quiet. They won't want to open up. It will take them a long time to come out of their shell in that meeting. But it's about setting those ground rules before. So, this is a respectful environment. There's no hierarchy, there's no power struggles here. You're both on the same level. So you're talking to each other as human beings, not as a manager or an employee. And they have to feel comfortable with that procedure. So maybe it comes down again to the buy-in at the beginning. It's getting your managers on board, your strategy teams, managing directors, and it has to come from the top, and they have to believe in it and truly embrace it as part of their culture. That's where a lot of the hard work comes from at the beginning. That's what takes up the time, that's what takes up the months before you put the mediation into play. It's all that background work that really does take the time. Okay? Yeah? You? Yeah, maybe one more question, then we'll have time at the end as well. Who wants to go?
Just a thought. You mentioned about you replaced your grievance procedure. Your previous procedure, did it have any informal stages in it?
Not particularly. It was more, okay, so an employer wants to raise a grievance, so come to us, let me know what's happening, we'll make some notes, we'll have a talk about it, and then we'll go away and I'll have a read over everything, I'll reflect on it, and then it was, okay, now let's do a formal meeting, an investigatory meeting with a different manager. They'll sit down, they'll listen to your points, will make notes as though you would do for the first stage of your grievance investigation. But then very much after that, it was, okay, this is a yes or a no. So yes, we'll go through and we'll uphold your grievance, or no, we don't think you've got the grounds for that. And again, you know, the employer was like, okay, well, now what do I do? You've said no, I don't have grounds, but I'm still feeling aggrieved. If they said yes, it's like, okay, so I'm going to get my own back on that employee in a way. So by implementing the resolutions policy, we've now put, there's, I think, 3 different stages at the beginning. So it's a lot to get your head around. It would, you know, it's a mediation first with the manager, so nothing to do with us as a mediator or the HR team. It's manager first, then and the parties. Then if that works, that's fine. If it doesn't work, it comes back to me. Then we do a full proper mediation with myself and the 2 employees, or the 3 employees, however many. And then if that works, great. If not, then they raise a formal resolution request. So that would be like your investigatory meeting that you do with a manager. You'd sit down, you'd listen, and then we'd investigate and choose to uphold. So there's a lot of stages before they even get to that formal meeting in a way.
And that's a guideline, not a
Yeah,
policy.
yeah. We've put it as a policy, but at each stage it just say this point might not be appropriate. It totally depends on the subject matter, on the nature, and then we'd see what's happening throughout. Because if we want to, we can skip some steps depending on the situation. I think David will probably go through that as well. Yeah, exactly. And David's got a whole scheme to help. Okay, great. Thanks, David. Thank you, everyone.